Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be going over 2 Ira deck builds for you, kind of a pseudo deck tech. We're going to talk about both the mid-range Boomer Ira, or the Shuko version, as well as the Flick Knives variant. Kind of talk about decision points, what is each one good and bad into, and kind of give my personal take, but also allow you to make that decision for yourself as which deck is better for you. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully enjoy your stay. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Discord down below as well as the channel membership. So I'm going to pull this up here, and we're going to start with mid-range Ira because it's like the easiest one that I can speak on. Couple things. I'm going to try to go through some cool card interactions as much as I can, but this isn't like an in-depth card-by-card deck tech. This is supposed to give you an overview and then allow you to make the decision for yourself on which deck you're, like which style you prefer, so to speak, right? Also, sideboard. I do have a sideboard on the mid-range version because this is also my new public list in general of the list that I run. But for the Flick Knives, I do not have a sideboard because I don't know what your local meta is. You know, if you're going to be preparing for your Pro Quest here in a month and a half, or like it's like a month at this point or less, your sideboard might be different. If you have 4 prisms in your area, you might have a bunch of poppers. If you don't have 4 prisms in your area and you have all, you know, Syndra, then you might want to go with something else. You know what I mean? So definitely figure it out and what is best for you. But so we have 2 basic concepts. The mid-range Ira list, mid-range, is really going to have, you're going to notice it has stuff like Tiger Stripe Shuko and Pouncing Paws. Or Pouncing Paws is in both, but Tiger Stripe Shuko is the main difference, right? Tiger Stripe Shuko versus Flick Knives. Now, the use of Tiger Stripe Shuko is very minute. It's only used into the Enigma matchup somewhat to be able to help push through her ward, but for the most part, it's just extra block value. If you're going into a more mid-range game plan, or, you know, a more kind of just 1-for-5 type game plan with some go against sprinkled in, and you're not trying to utilize your daggers like other than Kadachi insanely like you would in Flick Knives, you just want that block value. And then a little bit more game into Enigma if you can. So Shuko is typically used. Also, before Flick Knives became more popular on Ira, Shuko is just kind of the go-to arm piece, maybe breaking skills if you wanted to do that as well. But really, it was just Shuko. So what you're going to notice in each list typically is a couple things. So in the mid-range version, you're going to Shuko, and what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot more like 1-for-5-esque type cards. You're going to have stuff like Mauling Key, Torrent of Tempo, cards like Censor, even though that can be in both lists, cards like Sound the Alarm, and your go-again attacks mainly are going to be around like really overrate things that kind of just heighten your turns when you can. Stuff like Bittering Thorns, Cut Through, Double Strikes in some lists, Looking for a Scrap if you run the 1-power blues, and stuff like Spinning Wheel Kick, or other go-again attacks that you may enjoy more. And Scar for a Scar can be another one. But typically your game plan is you're playing off those 2- and 3-card hands, and then you're trying to get enough incremental value, build a little bit of a life lead, and then hopefully sculpt a good 4- or 5-card hand where you have 1 or 2 go-again attacks, a finisher, and a card like Dual Threat. And then, you know, you're just trying to whittle your opponent down and outvalue them turn cycle over turn cycle. Now, the Flick Knives version does do that too, but Flick Knives is more dagger-centric and more about keeping the chain alive and potentially using Retrieve in order to gain value that way, right? It really depends on how you want to play it. This is the basic mid-range list. You can see all the matchups that I have here. I'll be doing a full deck tech right before Pro Quest season, detailing every single card choice, but the main version is that. When it comes to the blue base, typically in a Shuko version, you're going to see the 1-power blue base because they're going to have Looking for Scrap in the board. If they don't value Looking for a Scrap, they might go to the 2-power or like the utility blues, which we'll talk about here in a second. But for the most part, I'd say an arbitrary number, 70 to 80% of Shuko variants, mid-range variants, are running the 1-power package in order to play Looking for a Scrap. Then you have the Flick Knives version. So the Flick Knives version, I don't have a ton of experience with the Flick Knives version. The Flick Knives Ira that I played, I wasn't running upsticks, or I wasn't running pick up the point. I wasn't running yellow upsticks. I was running just red upsticks because that's the only card that I see as overrate. And then I would use Flick Knives on key attacks to like gain a resource and keep a chain alive or something like that, right? But typically I wasn't running like all the pick up the points and all the upsticks. and maybe that's why I didn't find that I enjoyed it as much. But the good thing about this list is you can keep the chain alive longer, and it allows you to get intrinsic value off of your daggers a little bit more, right? Cards like Pain in the Backside really play well into this as well. You're just getting those extra value from your daggers, and you're flicking your opponent pretty consistently, which allows you to keep the chain alive. It allows you to get that extra point of damage when you want, and just play kind of a different way and throw your opponent off a little bit. There's a couple of different ways you can play it. Some people are on just red up, pick up the point, and just red up sticks and run. Some people are on more. I'm on more copies because if you're going to play the style list, I think you kind of have to play into it. So I have blue pick up the point so I can keep flicking consistently, and yellow up sticks. These lists normally slant a little bit more aggressive. So you'll see things like Pain in the Backside. You'll definitely see Scar for a Scar in the list for the most part. And you have, as you notice, you have a lot of go again attacks. You don't have those 1-for-5s that we had, like Torn of Tempo and Sound the Alarm and Mauling Key. You're not trying to get flick flack synergy here, right? You're just trying to go a little bit more aggressive and outvalue your opponent that way and throw them off with these dagger and flick effects. Another thing you'll see in the Flick Knives list, typically you'll see the 2-power/utility blue concept. So the only 1-power blue I really have in here is Pick Up the Point. And you could run any blues that you feel are best. I have Lunging Press in here because it's really nice into most attacks. Nip at the Heels is very good. It literally is turned on by pretty much most all of your attacks except for these 9 right here and a Lightning Strike, but it turns on from Pain in the Backside. It can buff cut throughs. It can buff a dagger because it says target attack with 3 or less base, right? It can buff the Pick Up the Points, and it can buff your blues, which is really, really nice. Then you have stuff like Rowdy Locals, which can also be in the Boomer list too, but Rowdy Locals is a good solid addition. I put Soul Beat Strike in here. Stab Wound is another common one you'll see. Throw Dagger is a common one you'll see, especially if you sideboard in a dagger, like you have another dagger in the sideboard. Having this at a 1 of or a 2 of is pretty nice. And then I have Warmongers in the list. But really the blues, if you just want to have a little bit more utility. I personally like the consistency of flick flack and looking for a scrap, but some people want their blues to be a little bit more proactive, especially if they're throwing just more go-again attacks and being a little bit more proactive or a little bit more aggressive per se. When it comes to matchup, there's like no strict right or wrong answer. I will say the flick list is going to be better into Enigma. You're going to be able to apply more pressure. You're going to be able to kill the reward more with flick knives. You have to be careful and make sure you're drawing your retrieve and you're not overextending yourself and getting rid of a Gadachi too early. However, this type of list typically will do better into Enigma. I feel that that's like the main point, and this is me where I'm going to try not to let my bias come in. But in this current meta, in my opinion, if we wouldn't have gotten the needles banned, this would be broken, right? But without the needles, I think personally the mid-range list has a better game into Assassin. You're able to run more defense reactions. You're able to outvalue them over time, while also having comparable damage to the flick list. I think the mid-range list is a little bit better into Aurora and Syndra because you can still have decent damage, with your 4 and 5 card hands where you're doing like 15, 18 damage, maybe even 20 plus on a 5 card hand with dual threat. And you're also getting over the top on defense reactions that they may be running like a play set of, while also having good block value into them, which is really important. And then finally, like Assassin, Syndra, Aurora. Earth is the weird part. I personally think Earth, you're better on the mid-range list with some choice go again stuff, but most people are under the impression that this list, the flick list, is better into Earth because you can go a little bit wider, apply a little bit more pressure against like Florian and stuff. So that's kind of like a 50-50 opinion on that. The one other reason, and this is where my bias is going to sink in, that I like the mid-range list better is because of the breakpoints. We are in a very de-react defense reaction heavy meta right now, right? Even the aggro decks like Aurora and Syndra are running defense reactions. They're running loyalties. They're running Sigil of Sufferings. They're running Wax-Ons. They're running Sink Belows. Like, it can happen, right? And then also you have like Enigma, who's normally running like 9 to 12 defense reactions. You have Florian, who's running Rootbound Carapace and all of these like other defense reactions for Dance. All that to say, I want my attacks to get over that 4 breakpoint more times than not. All of my go again attacks. So on Chainlink 2 specifically, Cut Through is going to come in for 5. Bittering Thorn is going to come in for 5. Censor naturally comes in for 5, and Lightning Strike is always going to come in for over the defense reaction value. Looking for Scrap is always going to come over the defense reaction value, unless you play as a 1-for-4 at the end of the chain, which at that point doesn't matter. If you know it's 5, this is going to be 5 on Chainlink 2, so on and so forth. I like that ability in this very defense reaction heavy meta. But you could also argue on the flick side that no one wants to de-react a Kodachi ever. So at least they don't want to. Even if it's 4-power Kodachi, it's just something about it. They don't want to defense react it. So you could say that is some value there, and you're making them utilize their defense reactions in a more inefficient way. So that's definitely possible as well. In this current meta, I think mid-range has a better matchup spread, but some people don't like that style of play. They want to be a little more proactive. They want to have more game into Enigma, and they want to be a little bit more aggressive. And if you're going that way, and that's your play style, definitely check out this list. It's not like 100% perfect. I think I got this list to about 9%, in my opinion, on what you should be running. I just don't have the sideboard here. So definitely fill out the sideboard based off what you think is going to be in your meta. But yeah, these are the 2 lists. It's nothing crazy. I definitely am going to go more in depth on the mid-range list in a later video, but I wanted to present these 2 options to you. So if your local meta has a ton of Enigma and you want to be a little bit more aggressively slanting, maybe you don't have as much Assassin, but you have like a lot of Enigma and Earth, then Flick Knives build-esque might be better for you. If you have a lot of Assassin in your area, a lot of Aurora, a lot of Syndra, and a lot of Prism as well, because this has a better Prism matchup, then I think the mid-range list is a better suited for you. So it really depends. If you try to meld them, most of the time it doesn't work. Maybe you can find a list that I haven't found. I've sat down with people and tried to build a hybrid list. It's very difficult to do. You end up just being not quite mid-rangey enough when you need to be, or not quite aggro enough when you need to be. I think you should just pick one and stick with it. It all depends on how you want to play. But hopefully this made sense to you. If it did, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. I wanted to make it short and sweet. I wanted to give you just a baseline on these decks so you can have a starting point. I am going to be doing a budget list version here on the How to Ira series as well. I think this is episode 4. Yes, episode 4. I'm going to be doing a budget version. I'll do a budget version next video, actually. I think that's better. A budget version next video. It's really hard, though. The budget version's probably going to be just one list, not both versions, because Flick Knives is expensive, right? Like Flick Knives, you're looking at, if we look at it right now at the time of recording this video, which is in March, you're still looking at what? Rainbow is $118. So it's really hard to build a budget version for that, but I can build just an all-encompassing budget IRA version for under $100 that I promise you can win armory matches with. At any rate, I'll do that. I'm also going to do a matchup spread video and then some gameplay videos. So we'll probably have 6 to 7 episodes in this series. If you have any other things you want me to talk about specifically that are overarching on helping people learn IRA, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to make some videos for y'all. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not me, it's completely fine. I always tell people, go to the creator worksheet down below. Find a creator you do like. Some of my favorites are highlighted in yellow. Definitely check them out. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.